Now, I think one of the most important things for our success at Eco Challenge was about our team. And this says surround yourself with incredible people. And I always say we can't do it alone, and thank goodness we don't have to. You know, thank goodness there are other people, because the only thing that shifted Eco Challenge from being impossible to possible for me was that I was there with my team. And not because they're three fast, strong guys, just because they were there with varied opinions and varied strengths and just having a presence of other people. And this says if two people on the team think exactly alike, one of them isn't necessary. And I love this statement, and I have to admit I stole it from our captain, and he actually said this to us. And you know, before we left for Eco Challenge, one of the things I think we did that helped us was not in the area of physical training, but in the area of preparation for what we were going to do when things went wrong. Not if things went wrong, when things went wrong. You know, it's almost a blessing to acknowledge at times when it's going to be difficult. For us, we said, you know what, we're not going for a walk in the park with our grandmothers. We're going to Eco Challenge. And if you've ever watched it, the cameras love to kind of hone in to teams that are having problems. And they're usually arguing, and I saw in the jungle things that I saw teams having what I call heated agreements. Heated agreements. They were in full agreement that they had massive problems. Massive problems. And they would argue about whose fault the problem was, you know, how bad the problem was. I saw a team arguing about whether they had a problem or not. And it takes massive amounts of physical energy to argue. And so what we agreed on was when things went wrong, we would do one thing. We would all come together as a team, and all we would say is, how do we improve this situation right now? How do we improve this situation right now? And the reason I think that statement works so well for us to that question is because, first of all, it's a statement of how do we improve this situation right now? Not what are you going to do to make this better? How do we improve this? And if you think about the question, the only way to answer it is with a possible solution. And so what we found was, as soon as you asked that question, you just had all of us start to kind of think about, how can we improve it? What can we do to improve this? And we'd start throwing things out. And then inevitably, you kind of start gathering them up. You know, you come up with what you think is the best solution at that time. And then the second part of this equation that was essential was once we made a decision, it was all hands on deck. All hands on deck. Because again, watching Eco Challenge is fascinating to so many people because it's about human nature. And often what you saw happening in these teams that started infighting and insulting and being critical of each other was they would just argue. So the captain would step in and he'd say, since you can't make a decision, I'll make the decision. And he'd make the decision and he'd march off leading the team. And the team would fall in behind him and the cameras following them very closely. And inevitably, one of them would turn back to the camera and say, yeah, like this is going to work. And you know, it doesn't take long. Usually it would be within 24 hours that team would be out. They'd just quit. They'd give up. And so we knew how important it was to have the energy of the entire team underneath the solution, regardless of whether you agreed with it 100% or not. And my experience in consulting in business over the last kind of 5 to 10 years has really at times shocked me to see how often in the corporate world there's, you know, a meeting or you know, an offsite, and people come to a conclusion about how they're going to move forward, and then they get back to the office, and the first thing they do is pick up the phone and say, yeah, like they think this is going to work. And you know, pulling your energy out of a solution can be as detrimental. It's just like sabotage to the progress of a team. So what we found we got very good at was sometimes the solution wasn't perfect, but because we all moved it forward, we would adjust it, kind of firm it up as we were moving, not wasting time, stopped and trying to solve something perfectly